Mitakeapi, we're back here again. There are two ones for our 2 o'clock, 2:15 session there too. So we'll get started here again there. But thank you. We had three good presentations today. We got two more and we're ready to go, man. Some good people, some good information, some good things happening. Nina Cho. Welcome back to our day where we're going to be introducing Juanita McArthur Big Eagle, mother Kushi, land and language advocate. Juanita is has been an elected leader in her community of Pheasant Rump Dakota Nation Shionete for the past 6 years. She spent numerous years in the health field and is currently working on advancing the land-based living from a catchphrase to daily living. As a second language learner, she focuses on the link to health, language, and how it encourages others to bring more language into their home. Her motto is education is our buffalo, feed and nurture for continued success. So let's welcome Juanita McArthur Big Eagle from Shionete, Paramedo.
Ambawashte, Nagyabi, Niemie, Washichu Juanita, Niemie, Wagia Wiaga Hiwi, Oshia Man Hinkna, Shionite and Wati, Dayawa Chimnaga. Greetings to all. Thank you for this opportunity to share some of the work we've been doing in our nation. And listening to the others that have presented, it gives us a lot of hope, and seeing that our elders are readily available to help us continue on. My apologies for the presentation I have if I don't mean to offend or disrespect our language and our teachings in any way. I had the Nekshi Pete who was supposed to join, and he is unavailable today. My video is not working, so excuse me, that I'm not visibly there. So what I can do is I'll just begin the presentation. And technology is not my friend, so I'll just add that now. I usually have the younger ones helping me through this. So I just wanted to extend a thank you as well to the organizers for reaching out. It is a lot of work, trying to bring back our language and trying to wake up our language. And in doing so, they ask us to do it with prayer. I do not have Nekshi Pete here beside me, so I would like to start by a prayer if I can. Adewakatang, Honamaku, Wagiawiagahi wi magiabi. Adewakatang, Mitugashi Nikushi, Amba washtene mopia woku. Adewakatang, Dagliabi. Iohana nie washte we chak u chea wopina tangabuku. Dagan Iohana mini ped machpia ia mokochi ne ish. Mamarkosh gabi Iohana. Tatanga pde with zitkana honga ish. Wopina tangabuku. Nichande ne makochi tawa. Adewa katang. Ho namakku oshigia nawaji hinkna wa chewa gia. Ushiamani Penamaya. Thank you. As we start, it was something that we had asked that we start in prayer, and being that I'm a Kushia, was given the go ahead to say prayer. Normally it is those that are older than me, so forgive me for that. So for my presentation, we have the Dakota language programming. My aspirations to a Dakota speaker. I am not fluent, and I am more or less at that kindergarten stage, if we could say that. My guest, Nekshi Pete, is unable to join us today. So let's see if this can work. So the presentation we have is, if not now, then when? Ambane, today. This is my grandson, and these are the ones that give me aspirations to begin the language and continue the language. Juanita Imagiabi. The trouble is you think you have time, and to be truthful, that's what we thought we had. We've come a long ways, and in doing so, we reach out to other nations, and I thought we had time. Esrump is located in Treaty 4 territory. For those who are not familiar with Saskatchewan, we're in the lower eastern part. So imagine a small reserve in the southern part of Saskatchewan that sits on sandy soil. So that is where we are. We have the most beautiful, pristine water too. In the beginning, I was asked to partake in the conversation of climate change. And in doing so, there was no women included. So we started the work in the garden and, looking at the overall health of the women, and some of them had concerns about their own mental health, so to speak. So while we're working in the garden, we started to have these conversations on what it used to be. So we set up some discussions with Priscilla Setti from the university. You might be familiar with her and you might not be. We had land blessings, and we also were constructing our language revitalization camps through the summer. We would only have certain 4 days of the year that we would put these on. And everything was always separate. We seemed to always keep everything separate. So the garden work, it started off with just me and my dad. And there's my dad. Today he's 84 years old, and he wanted to see the success in our community. And doing so, he was offering his time. Having the children involved is very critical. We had them planting the seeds. We were given some seeds from Sioux Valley. We had the colored corn, and we attempted to plant. We were also out connecting with the land with our elders and talking about medicines and reconnecting to reclaim and restore that language. In doing so, we always heard that oral stories are who we are. And I found this picture on the internet, and I thought it was very familiar with some of the stories that my son would share. We talked about the dinosaurs and such. So when I found out that there was this Dakota short story contest, sorry, not Dakota, but a short story contest, I asked him, did you want to write a book? We'll use the Dakota language. And this is him, the day I asked. We submitted his story, and he was actually the first Dakota story ever submitted, and he won first place. The book was called The Legend of T-Rex Short Arms. The lesson from the boy's perspective on, on dinosaurs and how they lived and how we lived with them. The dialects and the orthography style in this book is from Fort Peck. We had the help of Mike Turcotte. As you can see, we have the translated by Michael Turcotte and Peter Bigstone. It was a lot of work, being that all our Dakotas are spread out, different nations and across the medicine line. When we approached Mike, he said, sure. So with my son's story, his first character was Axe, Muspe. And you can see in this picture, Wanagash Shinha, that square represents the H guttural. And then there's a triangle, which is not on this image. It represented the G guttural. And that is what they used for their children so they can understand where those guttural enunciations would be. And along the way, he was supported. We have my deceased Ate, Victor, and he spoke to my son since he was born in the language, and we've since lost him. So we dedicated this book in his honor. It just shows during the presentation, the supports that he had, his uncle JR sitting there beside him with such a proud look on his face, and my son is so small, reading in front of a crowd of 400. He read the language in the language, and he was able to read the orthography and the writing system. And there he is introducing with the APTN. He was signing some books, and their drawings were all made by himself. His second book, there was another calling for short story, and he entered. In this book, Ne Wawanga Pohe Pagunda Shtea Iwok Nangabi The Legend of the Duck-Billed Dinosaur. And once again, his love of dinosaurs came through in the lessons in this book. We had worked with Vincent Collette from the University in Regina, and also late Wilma Kennedy, one of the older Dakota speakers. She's no longer with us. And we were able to keep her stories in this writing system that we have. As you can see, it's a lot different from the first book. So we started to concentrate on the different orthographies and writing systems that we have in Dakota. And some of the words that she had were very old Dakota words, some of them that we don't use today. So that's why, I'd like to say that this book is a treasure. And in doing so, we've learned a lot of lessons in writing stories so we can be more oral, is that you have to think Indian. You can't think Wasichu and then write in Indian. You have to think Indian, and then you're able to translate that into the language. Those were lessons in itself. The second book, the character is Bo Indazibe. And in doing so, this really strengthened our family. We were able to sit and we were able to talk and share. And I was not aware that my son could draw and color. It was amazing. We have my little girl there who loves to do so. But it was a labor of love. We loved sharing and writing and engaging in getting into his mind and able to share the language. So we entered another contest, and this is his third year of entering contests, and he won again. Excuse me. This book is called The Legend of the Ankylosaurus' Thick Skin. They do not have the Dakota translation on the cover. It's on the inside. This is a Fort Peck writing system as well. At the back of the book, it focuses on the root words and such. And once again, there was a lot of supports and extensive efforts to see this book through. The dedication he has is to all the mothers with sons and work mothers do for us. Because the legend of the story is of this dinosaur was a lizard, and because he didn't pay attention to his mother when she used to always tell him to wash, he developed this thick skin. So he dedicated this to mothers and how we're always after our sons to keep themselves clean. And like I added, it's more than a family effort, to sit and discuss and talk and have those inclusions of other Dakota speakers. It was an amazing experience. And this was the last book that he has constructed. We're working on a fourth one, but it's so hard because of the pandemic. So from those development of his stories, he began to write his own story he was beginning to script his own life, so to speak. On the left here, he was invited to read his first story with Wanaskewin. It's an audible book. I have yet to see it or hear it. It's in the new renovations at Wanaskewin. You're supposed to be able to press that button and hear that story. And on the right here, he was a speaking engagement with SICC's language conference. And the third book went out for display. He was invited to numerous conferences, to schools, and to see him grow and thrive in the language is what I wish for all other youth and children. He delivered his story and his lessons at the Elders Conference in Regina. To watch my son speak and talk with such elegance with the language, I was so impressed because I didn't think that he would be able to do it. I thought he would lose confidence, but the language gave him confidence. He was invited to a school in Lumsden. He delivered his 3 books in the language and then English to the whole school. And the funny thing is that this is when his voice was changing. So he was squeaking and he was making all these different sounds. In the meantime, I'm trying to be serious in the back, listening to my son change his voice change and turning into a young man, and doing so he's able to share that with the school. He complained about a sore, dry throat, so we had to keep giving him some water, but the teachers were so impressed. We had some ask us on the side, how did you, it wasn't myself that taught him the language. It was all of the connections. It was all of the Dakotas that we reached out to that supported and helped along the way. In the back of the third book, it does talk about the differences in writing and pronunciation. As our Dakota nations, we have various different writing systems. And there is a glossary in the back of this book that we found to be very, very useful. So the first two books do not have the glossary, but the third book does. We're looking at adding to the first and second book the glossaries, so that way when they're used in the schools, we would have the separate sheets. So in learning about my children and their different styles, my little girl, when you concentrate on the language with her and the food connections working in the garden, she can relay it right back. She's able to speak Dakota. She's a quick learner. And with my son, he likes the written word more. So we decided together that he was going to focus more on the orthography and the writing system. So that way he's able to learn and understand and read the Dakota language. During the times we were reaching out and going to different communities, there were small camps going on. And the one thing that really played out was what's lost when a language dies. Over the last few years, we've lost our two, my personal language coaches, language supports, late Frida, late Wilma. And this year we lost our last Dakota speaker on Peasant Rump. So it takes dedication and patience and community involvement and a great number of prayers to see this grow in strength. So in respect and honor of those who have lost, this is why I continue to do so. I hear them saying, Juanita, don't stop. Don't stop what you're doing. And I have those last text messages from our last conversations with them. So those are kind of my kick in the butt. Those are my don't stop, even though it's hard, keep going. And here we have Frida. Oh, watch, she was recognized with the Culture and Spirit Award in 2018. And then we found out that she was, getting sick. So she started to reach out more. And then towards the end, she left to the next level, we say. Our approach is to include language in all that we do, even if it's just one word. So we've been bringing language into our little school. We've been constructing plans to implement language back in our community. So it goes beyond just the book with my children. I reached out and I started working within the community that I had this opportunity. We were reconnecting women back to the ways of living, knowing, and doing, with our primary focus on revitalization of the language through our traditional foods, ways of life of our ancestors, bringing it into the homes, just getting to reclaim that language back. We've come this far, so we have to keep on. This is our garden. This is my grandson. You cannot get him out of that garden. He will eat the dirt. He has his shoes off. He lives and rolls in that, and he reminds me of a little buffalo. Include them in the language and everything that we do. And because we don't have those speakers, we supplement that by playing songs. We supplement that by playing on our vehicles or on DVDs or on the speakers, the stories. So we hear the language while we're out because we do not have those language speakers any longer. We do have the one, but it's difficult for him to come and visit each time. So we need to supplement. I shouldn't be posting this picture. I had this picture in the back, it's our late Armand, and with the family, they said, no, we can. So this is my little one, and she always sat with them and asking stories, and they're always there to share. And we have Neck Sheep Pete here. and discussing with her why we don't whistle at night. So that was a lesson in itself. This is the works that we continue to do. We have the young boys who come out, and we've just finished planting some blueberries. This garden has blueberries, Saskatoons, the sage grows here. We have gooseberries, raspberries, strawberries, sticking to the traditional berries. So that way, when it comes to the feasts, we're able to say them in the language. This next picture beside it is a bit blurry, and it was with the engagement with the school division in bridging the two and bringing the language together. And these were with our endangered species. And you cannot replace real life. We are in the garden where we're planting the trees. This was just last year, even though COVID had visited. We still came out and planted. We've been engaging in canning deer meat and doing the old practices so that way we can encourage our youth and our mothers that it's not an old way, it's a continued way. And there's my dad sitting there watching the youth go to work. And we've come a long ways from when he was the one digging and working the land. You can see we now have water. It took us 4 years to get water, and now we do. We have it all fenced off because there was deer and everything, so they were eating all of our berries. So it's a start, and with the fence up now, we're hoping to preserve our new berry trees. And all the different opportunities I had in my career, this has been the most rewarding. I recently left the health region to focus on my children, and in doing so, I was able to focus on the language and looking at all the ways language can be incorporated, and language lives in everything. When I first looked at my own journey, there was no place to start. So that's what I thought, looking at this, we need a place to start. So that's what these engagements was a place to start. So everybody had that opportunity. Our little school is the first building that ever had a Dakota name. Owayawa TB Oyade Jusina. This is the ribbon cutting, and we had our little ones coming out, and these are our staff. We were able to have ceremony and song with our late elder, and we blessed the building. This is where people were excited, and they asked, what does that mean? And we were able to share in English. It means Little People's Learning Lodge. We have delivery of language. We focus on language in the classroom. And our little ones, they engage, and they are so quick. The individual here on the chair, the young student on the chair here, she was on video, and our language coach, we have my relative JR, he has her standing at that blue line. And in the classroom, that blue line he says, represents fear. Once you step over that line, you have no fear. So language is able to live here. Language lives here. Language is alive here. So all that fear disappears. So you could see him sitting with one of the little girls here, encouraging her to, and they're doing introductions, and they're on the other side of the line. They would jump across, Namie, and they would say their name. We do have the written word on the wall, the brown bear, what do you see? That little book is their favorite, so they work on that in the language. And it's shared with the parents, and also to summer programming. We try to continue it. We don't stop. We just try to keep rolling it through the months. So we started working with the women, and they didn't know what or how to start, but they all do crafts. They all have art. They're very artistic. So in doing so, it lives in our old ways. So we had the gathering with the buffalo hide, the scraping of the hide. Sorry about that. Scraping of the hide. And during so we had these conversations of the songs and what we used the buffalo for. And it was a closed group. There was no men allowed. It was all women. And it became this emotional journey. And when the men started to come out on the fourth day, because they were standing outside wondering, what's going on? What's going on? And we said, it's for the women. I never had so many men standing outside the door wanting to know, what are the women doing that we're not invited? So on the last day, we invited the men in to sit, and then they were engaging also in with, our visitor, Donnie, on some of the buffalo stories. And in doing so, the women were feeling a bit anxious, and women were cutting themselves with the tools, and we can see how that was disrupted. So we've learned from that this is it's something that should be closed for women, because they were healing at the same time. As you can see on the bottom here, we were doing rattles, with the hide work. The women were very proud of the work they did. This buffalo hide is going to go into the Little People's Learning Lodge. We were looking at doing a winter count, but that hasn't panned out. We've, the pandemic, and we need some more teachings. We're engaging with our elder in Standing Buffalo. So we were canning meat as well, teaching them how to can meat and labeling in the language and getting them used to using the language. Arts brings out the story of life. We started to share in more crafts not crafts, arts, because we're not just crafters. These are our arts, these are our storyboards, these are our way of life. And the young girls engaged in their own storyboard. And in doing so, they are taught about the cradle board. And I was so happy that I was able to share this time with my daughter. It was a very intimate time with us, and I learned a lot about her as well. We were out picking tibzina, our turnips. A lot of them never seen the turnips, and we showed them how to cook those turnips, and it was wonderful. It was a joy to be out there. I could feel my spirit coming alive, and I was getting emotional at the same time. And it just shows some of our paraflesh or rawhides that we were working with. And then we had our arts. We invited other ladies out to share with the stories. And this is the first time I've ever made anything in rawhide, and the story on that. And of course, when you make something for the first time, you give it away. So I gifted this. And I was so proud of it too. But as Indian people, we give everything away. I've heard the elders before earlier today talk about bringing songs, and that is so critical for our young men. So we had them write out the songs, so that way they can learn it in their own home, so that way when they come and meet, they're familiar with those words. So we had the honor song and a healing song, and the young men were able to make their own drums. And in working in the land myself, I found there was a lot of healing. And I'm not a songwriter, I'm not a song builder, but when I was out there, those songs were coming. The songs to tie up your baby when you're putting him in that moss bag, or the songs to sing when you're picking those berries. Because in doing so, we reached out to other communities, Dakota communities, and we don't have them. They're gone to sleep. They buried them, some of them say. So now we have to wake them up. Our Buffalo ball games, the students enjoyed those. We had 3 nations come together and engage in those traditional games and teach each other and bring out what they know and what they made. It was beautiful. And this is before pandemic. So we're hoping to get back at that again. And in doing so, we have our elder Pete. And when they're running, Oktagesh, Oktagesh, he talks to them in the language, to run, or Inej, stop, and giving them those command words so they get used to that. To create a place to start with the different opportunities to learn, moving forward in the language, we have to kind of think what else? How do our people learn? We don't have those old ways that are first and foremost, and they should be. So we would kind of put those aside until everybody was comfortable with the language and everything first, and then we would, kind of bring them together, with the school land based, with the alley, we had funded programming, the women's dialogue, our hand signs, our Little People's Learning Lodge. We had males vocabulary online, story and puppet shows, and including all of the events that are happening, we are going to develop a language charter, just so we have something on writing. So this was the third session. This Nakoniao book. Armand McArthur and Wilma Kennedy are late relatives. They worked so hard on this, and we piloted 3 sessions in our community. And this is one of the last sessions that we had with him. And then he became ill, and he left. And before every class, he always stated, know your alphabet and how to pronounce it. You can read and you can write if you have that comfort level. Sorry about that, my phone just dropped. We had the Dakota vocabulary and phrases. And this is another phrase book that was developed with late Armand McArthur and Pete Big Stone. It was focused on the boys and the men for mentorship. So that way when they gathered, they were familiar with the language. And that is delivered online. It's every Monday from 7 to 9. And we're hoping just to continue that. So everything right now is all delivered online. For the little school, we had the Indigenous storytelling, we've had puppet shows, and we were able to engage with Matthew from Chegakin, and he was such a great person to work with, with the puppets, so we can keep our children engaged. Those were all online. Later, they were shared on the woman's YouTube page that we have, as well as a Facebook page for a women's gathering. The women's dialogue, this is my favorite part, is I'm able to sit and converse with our other women in the language. And we have Tui Sarah helping with us along that. We have that every week, and we're continuing to do so every Wednesday. And we hope to physically engage once this pandemic passes. So it encourages the conversation. We used to have those conversations, and we hear the elders always talking about conversations. We used to visit, we used to have these, and we don't any longer. So we're trying to work on that. We are working on that. And these are some examples of the different styles that we have. We have Mike Turcott, who offered this, going to the band office. He translated the dialogues, and we have Tui Sarah, and they're kind of different, but it's good to know both the dialects, but just to understand that they mean the same thing, and being able to enunciate them. We have the Dakota hand signs, and this is one that the youth always used to gravitate to. And we used to have my brother Roger White come out, and Mike Turcott, and just see those two engaging with hand signs. We sure miss that. And so we have, my nephew delivering that online for our youth as well every week. We have our youth engagement through our song. We have flute. We had a few young men who were instead of going out hunting, they wanted to learn about flute music. So we offered that opportunity for them as well. And it was the lessons on the birds and the bees, and how these conversations of our manhood and womanhood ceremonies. And we were able to do that with the young men through flute music and engaging with my relative from CTK Chigakin. We have our outdoor survival camps. These are one of the other ones that are difficult to do because our elder is older, and it's hard for him to get around. So when we do have camp, we are setting up one location so he's able to sit there with us. We had several throughout the months, but because of COVID, we had to, halt on those engagements, and we brought it into a 5-day camp, and we'll be doing that again in July, and we will continue these talks that we have. Our youth engaged, we have about 15, and it's a beautiful sight. These are some of our youth that are on part of the land-based hunting and survival, going out on the land. They love archery, so every opportunity we have to engage with language, we bring it into all of our programming. And a funny story is that a lot of them have not went to the bush before. So we had my relative Matt to take them into the bush. We went for a 3-hour walk. Well, he forgot to look back, and some of them got left behind, and I was at the flank, and next thing you know, it's like, okay, our party separated, it's getting dark. Then I realized I'm so lucky to have my dad where he taught me about the bush. So I came in handy that day, so I was kind of proud of myself. Here's our youth. We're working on our own outdoor curriculum. Excuse me, it's like a new step. And as one of the speakers before us, Dallas, we should not always be reaching to the Western curriculum way. We're working on our own ways. So that is in the works as well. Communicating with all of our membership. We have a Facebook page, excuse me, and everything we post, we try to do with language. Nawajibi gakna ina makoche. We stand with Mother Earth for our Earth Day, just trying to get them used to this knowledge, the language is visible everywhere. And in using some of our photos of our youth, so that way they know that what they're doing is important. Making our language visible. We have signs now that go out. Nakoniawo, this is a man's way, speak your language. We were told women don't use wo, and because we don't make commands, we have statements. So some of us were like, okay, well, we'll have to get used to that too. So see, these are some of the signs that we have upcoming in our nation that's going on our buildings. And we are so excited for that. They're in the process of being, they will be erected on the buildings. They come in certain sizes, but of course I had to get support on that as well. We had to reach out to other nations, to help us get the correct spelling and such. It's important to keep those connections. Excuse me. Reaching out with Matoska, we would go out there and we would sit with them and have lessons. And we would invite our relatives across the medicine line to sit with our programming. And in our programming where it's critical, where we need to engage our members to build up confidence. So these were confidence building classes. Our late Tui, she always told me that you need to keep that fire going. And this is one of our last engagements we went to down south at Fort Peck. We were there for about 3 days. This is a few years ago. Sure missed those engagements. And keeping the community up to date with our COVID stats, as well as using our language. It's so important. And you can see here we're using the image of the medicine wheel. Our late elder, Armand, always reiterated that medicine wheel has a purpose, he said. So make sure everybody understands what it's for. We continue the language, making it visible with our COVID posters and our elders. So that way they encourage the use of language as well. They were so excited. These posters are up on our Facebook, and they'll be in our band office and also in our health. We're of course just waiting for them to be printed as well. Things are a little slow right now. And some more of our COVID posters. And one of the big things that I will continue to work on is recipes. Working on recipes in having them in our writing system, as well as making the video so they can hear the writing. So it's a process, taking the pictures and writing, each step by step, but all the way, it's engaging. And my daughter, my little one, she's 10, she learns, so she will be able to do this when she's older. When she's my age, she'll be able to understand and know these and say them in the language. So right now we're at the same learning stage, and I cannot be more grateful for the opportunity, for those who have helped along the way, so that way our young ladies can begin to pass these recipes on in the language. She cans, my little one, went out berry picking, and she had wrote Wibazoka in Jahib, meaning our Saskatoons that are mixed, which is our jam. She was so proud of making jam that day. And also teaching about our medicines, our silverberries. People seem to overlook those, which is good because they're not overpicked. We save them for the animals. High in vitamin C, and we make a tea with them. Later, we make necklaces with them. And when you show this process to those learners, to those young women, they're amazed. And I'm so fortunate that I had these teachings along the way from my grandmother. And you can see the necklaces that were made. We make teas, kind of like a matcha tea. We're able to mix that, and we drink it through the winter. It's our vitamins. And lastly, we have, out of all the projects, we're planning the language charter. The only way for our nation, I believe, and after talks with many of the others, is we need a plan. So with all of these engagements and all of the encouragement and surveys that go out, we can put it in writing so they can understand and see, coming from them, that this is their vision for our language charter. So we put out posters, engaging them, hoping to engage them. We would visit the elders' homes with permission, of course, and surveys would go out to the remaining elders who did not open their doors, or either out to members who wish to participate. Bring the language in yourself, now that we need to make the connection to the sacred. Move past the one-word nation. That was intense. It's where we're at. We got the one words. We need to marry them together. So when we're doing the actions, we have the words, the sentences, the songs. So that is almost, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And, I'll be reaching out to others, and thanks to those who have been helping so far. We do have a list of resources that we use. We're limited in speakers. We have to be innovative. We have the Women's Gathering page on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. We had websites. Those two crashed, and I lost a ton of information. So make sure you have the right media person when you're setting these up. It's very, very critical. I lost 1 year's worth of programming, and I still get very upset over it. We have the Indiana website, and that is a really godsend as well. We have dictionaries. We have a new dictionary coming out from Pheasant Rub. We work with the late Wilma and late Armand. We have, I believe it's about 5,000 words. Of course, we all have similar with the workbooks, and our old ways was visiting and taking a gift. Though you can't beat that. Once the pandemic is quieting down, reaching out and going to visit, that is where our learning begins. Using our TPR methods, our ASLA methods, they're all out there, just to bring different types of teachings, different types of learning techniques, and we have our SICC resources, and they are amazing. They gave us a place to start. I have the old resources as well from one of our speakers, an ocean man, Leona Crowscamp, and she had her Totona series, and we have one of the last ones from when we took classes with her. So I'm pretty stingy of those, and of course we shouldn't be stingy, but I'll always share. Reaching out to others, I'm very thankful for those who are available. And it's online, it's so easy, it's attainable, it's convenient, but it's so impersonable. You lose out on that human interaction, and that's so critical right now. So I just wanted to thank, our late Tui, and Armand, and Wilma, because they were always there to reach out. And they told me that, it starts with you. You're a Kushi now. So that really resonates with myself. It's a humbling experience. It was a very personal journey. It's very emotional. We started back in 2016, where we sat these two down and we asked, what can we do? And they delivered. So now our Nekshi Pete, he works alone. He's our last one out here. So we're going to look at bringing them all together soon. And, we hear about the paths we choose, but I believe the path chose me. I was always outside. I was always wanting to learn more. And this picture of me with my dad when I was little, he used to work out at Saskari. Saskari is a cultural camp. He was always there, just like there was always so much for me. And my dad is still beside me along the way. And in the process, he's relearning the language because his dad was a fluent Dakota speaker, but he told him, learn English. You'll learn more, you'll know more about English. He says, you are not allowed to speak Dakota. So thank you, residential school, for that one. But along the way, my dad and we learned together, and to see him heal, that's something though that I never thought I'd be involved with. So that's the one thing with Dakota. They say that we need to have prayer. We need to reconnect. Stories from our elders always say that the eagles carry our prayers. And there was an elders conference, and they had said these eagles are coming closer and closer to the earth. It's because they don't hear your prayers anymore. And when I heard that, it was devastating, because I thought, when have I prayed and used the language? Never. So this was an opportunity for me to learn a prayer in my language and say it and speak from the heart, as they had reiterated. Looking back at the work and what I love to do, looking closely at the present you are constructing, it should look like the future you're dreaming. It's very emotional for me to see, because I knew what I was missing when I was younger, and to see and to be part of that, and hopefully we can make those connections. Because my dream is to be able to hear the youth and the elders in our community speak our language. So in closing, food is part of our language transfer. Food and the life of language is connected in our diets. The food we have, we can say it in our language when we say our prayers. And being a dental therapist, a licensed dental therapist, I cannot stress the importance of oral health. Because when our speakers become edentulous, it changes our words. That transfer of language starts to change. So I encourage everybody to keep healthy, keep each other motivated, and be kind to your relatives. Thank you. Kanamaya.
No, thank you, Juanita McArthur, Nina Wopida here from everybody there too. Just we had some questions lined up, but we got to get ready for our next speaker there too. But what we'll do is we'll forward them over to you. They're from some of our people that had some questions on some earlier parts of your presentation, but we'll give it over to our staff. Our staff will move it over to you, then we can respond to them that way there too. But I want to thank you for your presentation, some beautiful words and some beautiful thoughts, and thank you for everything that you offered for us today.